Okay, so tonight for the new moon day, for our new moon Sabbath day scripture study, we decided that we wanted to look into the shadow for the abomination of desolation that is that occurred in the temple that occurred in the second temple at Jerusalem, or sorry, yeah, the second temple at Jerusalem in the just before the time of Christ, at the time of the Maccabean revolt in Judea. And so this is a type and shadow of the abomination of the foretold abomination of desolation, which occurred once at 70 AD when the Romans destroyed the temple and left not one stone standing upon another, and will occur that abomination that maketh desolate will occur again as the people turn from Yahuwah our Elohim.
Right. So to go along with that, what actually caused both of these destructions is the fact that people turned away from Yahweh. And then a curse happened. So to go along with this, let's go share a scripture that's more about prayer, but it just shows the same idea. Okay.
Right. Which connects the abomination of desolation to our wicked ways and turning away from Yahweh.
Yes, correct. It's that one right there.
I can't see it.
Oh, because of Zoom issues, probably, right?
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
I my eyes were never that good even before.
Is that good enough, or do you want?
That's better.
Okay.
Okay, so it's in Proverbs 28, verse 9. He that turneth away his ear from hearing the law or Torah, even his prayer shall be of an abomination.
Oh, wait a minute. That sounds like the abomination.
Yeah. So.
Oh, look, it even has the word abomination. Ha! And this word, the Hebrew word behind turned away, it goes along with it too, but that's another subject.
Yeah, turning away from Torah is the opposite of repenting and having a broken heart, contrite spirit. No. The abomination that maketh desolate is the setting aside of God's law. Mm-hmm. Guess what, Christians? You're guilty.
They're not the only ones. The Jews are also, because they have their oral law that actually makes the written null and void. And Yeshua stated that in the New Testament. But anyways.
Yeah, Christians, Jews, everybody, you're guilty. The world lies in darkness because we do not turn to the Torah.
Yeah, and that goes along with Matthew 24.
Traditions, and soon the world will be made desolate for the judgments and destruction which are to come.
So Matthew 24 brings out how the world will go cold because they don't keep Yahweh's Torah. And then also to go along with the Gentile issue that Ben brings up, I think you'll like that one.
Yeah. Jeremiah 16:19. By the way, I love the prophet Jeremiah because he shows in his supplications to God that it is okay, actually, for a prophet to speak to God honestly about how he feels.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And that to me is such a wonderful blessing. And to know that God was still there for him, and he caused his word to burn within him as a fire, so that he could not hold it back, and he kept doing that which was right, in spite of the fact that he was hated.
And in this physical world, his hope that he was given was in the new covenant, and in his physical world he literally saw nothing to give him any degree or shred of hope.
Yeah, I mean, I don't envy what he went through. He was in a literal shithole for how long?
Yeah. But the Lord strengthened him through it.
Yeah.
And he knew that the Lord was stronger than those who were against him.
Also, just an interesting note, Jeremiah was an Elijah.
Yeah. O Lord, my strength and my fortress and my refuge in the day of affliction. The Gentiles shall come unto thee from the ends of the earth and shall say, surely our fathers have inherited lies, vanity, and things wherein there is no profit. These Gentiles, you can see them cropping up all over the place now, people turning to the law, even though they don't know necessarily how to turn to it. They turn, and many turn to Pharisee traditions, which actually in many, because they're often used to supersede the law, they are wickedness, grossness, wickedness in themselves.
Right. So the false traditions make Torah null and void, as Yeshua stated in the New Testament. But there's the good thing is that people are having this desire
to turn.
But when you start, you don't know any better, and you go start listening to the wrong people. So, which goes along with 2 Nephi 28:14.
It is so important.
They have good hearts, but they're listening to the wrong teachers.
It is so important for the Talmudim to choose a good Talmud.
You might want to say it in English, just so people.
It's so important for the students to pick a good teacher.
Yes. Yeah, that's a really big deal. And at the same time, at a crucial point too. So it's ask Yahweh for direction on that.
Yeah. So surely our fathers have inherited lies, vanity, and things wherein there is no profit. And those lies, those lies, one of those lies is that which the Lord defines himself on as the idea that was abolished. That is one of those lies that Gentiles have inherited. The idea that the law,
that is in Torah,
yeah,
been abolished, not law of Moses. Law of Moses was done away at the cross. I am almost done with a very good resource page that goes over lots of details, lots of scripture.
But Torah was not done away with at the cross. The only way to do away with Torah is to do away with Yahushua HaMashiach.
And we have a recording of how Book of Mormon shows that Torah is still valid after Yeshua's death and resurrection.
But when Yahushua HaMashiach says, I am the way, the truth, and the life, the only way to get rid of Torah is to get rid of Yahushua HaMashiach. Or as the Christians like to say, Jesus Christ. If you want to get rid of the Torah, you have to get rid of Jesus. It's that simple, because Jesus defined himself as the Torah. So this is one of those lies that the Gentiles have inherited. Vanity.
Another one is pagan holidays, right?
Yep, absolutely. Pagan holidays are definitely pagan holidays to replace the feast days, and the biggest lie is that the feast days are Jewish feast days. They're not.
But yeah, there's nowhere in scriptures it says Jewish days. They're Yahweh's days.
Jews don't own them. Yahweh owns them. And the Jew and his people are supposed to celebrate them.
Yeah.
So
on that note, let me check my calendar because I don't have the date memorized. Passover is coming up, right?
The
And
25th, you said?
Yep.
it is April 22nd. April 22nd.
April 22nd is Pesach, according to the sun and the moon.
We're past.
Yeah, and also that means the 24th is first fruits, which is a commanded day not to work.
Mm-hmm.
There's 3 specific days for the annual sabbaths, high holidays, that were commanded not to work. And that is the 16th day of the first moon is one of them. First fruits / resurrection day. Okay.
So so we have to overcome these lies that we've inherited, which were fed to us, whether they were fed to you by your basic by the church you grew up in or not. They all came from the Catholic Church.
Yes. Because they're the ones that baptize the pagan traditions that Yahweh tells us specifically not to worship him after how the pagans or heathens worship their false gods.
He told us that these holidays were irredeemable, that these practices were irredeemable.
You can't
cannot
make
baptize
wickedness
them.
righteousness.
So these are the lies. Setting the stage here for the type and shadow of the abomination of desolation that was acted out by Antiochus Epiphanes in Jerusalem. And so, well, if we can go back to okay. So what I would like is if we could have if I could have you, Zach, read verse 29.
2 years later, the king sent his chief collector of tribute to the cities of Judah when he came to Jerusalem with a powerful force.
Okay, so the king here is Antiochus Epiphanes. And he came and he sent his his chief collector of taxes to Jerusalem with a powerful force. Okay. And if you could read verse 30, Stephen.
Yes. He deceitfully addressed the people there with sentiments of peace.
Okay. Once again, pause real quick. He is the chief collector of tribute.
Sure. Now it is interesting though. A little before the abomination of desolation is going to be happening in a little bit, it is prophesied that people will start speaking peace, right? And so
it is also prophesied of the antichrist that he will keep the covenant of peace with many for 1 week.
Yeah. So all right. So once he had gained their confidence, he suddenly launched a savage attack on the city and exterminated many of the people of Israel, which is also going to happen again.
Right. And just to give you some history here, the Greeks really hated Judaism. This was a strictly persecutory move. And such it will be when the Antichrist leads the armies of the world against Jerusalem and Zion. Similar thing. The people who dwell there will be people who keep the law, not the traditions of the Talmud.
Yeah, so on that point, Book of Mormon and D&C does bring out that the people that are there are not who they claim to be, and it's not going along with prophecy as people claim. So, and that's the scriptures. and they describe the type of people that are going to be there and when they'll be there. And what has happened already doesn't fit. Okay.
Okay. He plundered the city and set it on fire. He demolished its dwellings and walls that encircled the city. Zach 32.
Took the women and children captive and seized the livestock.
Okay. Once again, this is a type of what the Romans would do in 70 AD. So, you know, it's good to note that some of the children of Israel were able to get some of the children of Judah were able to flee in separate directions. Some were taken into captivity and sold as slaves in Europe. Many fled to Arabia and into Africa, but there was a large contingent of Jews that did go into Europe, and that is actually that's actually something that is documented as well. And so it's the whole thing about the heritage of Judah is not as clear cut as many would like to make it be.
One thing I do want to just, I know you said it, but I just want to make it more clear. At 70 AD, the Romans starved the Jews in Jerusalem, okay, or Israelites, because it was more than just
the ones who were able to escape to Africa and the Arabian Peninsula were those who had left before 70.
Correct. But on this point where you're bringing out how this is what the like the Romans did. I'm just bringing out how they did starve them. Right.
Yep, they seized the livestock.
Yeah.
Okay. Was it you for verse 33?
I'll read it. Then they built the city of David with a massive high wall and strong towers, and it became their citadel.
Okay, so the city of David is actually a place within the city of Jerusalem.
Yeah.
It's a section of the city of Jerusalem.
Yeah, so we might call it more a town or area, right?
Right.
Or a suburb. Or
yeah, or a suburb.
So they take a part of Jerusalem and they make it their stronghold, their citadel. It's yeah. So okay, and there they stationed a sinful race of renegades and fortified themselves within it, inside it. Okay. And so yeah.
So this right here, I can see this is a type of Zion to some degree, right? Not completely because of some of everything that's going on.
It's the opposite side. It's talking about a sinful race of renegades.
Oh, okay, yeah. So I missed that a little bit.
Yeah, so there they stationed a sinful race of renegades. This is actually, this is they're just creating their own stronghold there in the midst of Jerusalem so that they can maintain control over what they see as these ignorant back-looking peoples that aren't keeping up with the times and becoming pagan like them.
Okay, so this could go along with some of the aspects that happened in 70 AD because there's multiple fractions of Jews during 70 AD, and it was the zealots that actually caused all the problems, but they caused divisions among other Jews.
Yeah, but yeah, this is well before 70 AD though.
Right. But I mean, this is like kind of some of the same pattern is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, kind of a similar
Isn't
pattern.
this the uprising of Barnabas?
No, this is where they're establishing the reign. This is where they're establishing the reign of terror of Antiochus Epiphanes.
Oh yeah. Sorry.
That's what's going on here. They're establishing the reign of terror of Antiochus Epiphanes, and they're doing it by force. They're doing it, which is actually telling of how the fifth kingdom will come in on the people.
Yeah.
It'll be
Yeah,
established by force, and it'll be and it'll come with a new religion desecrating desecrating what people have considered to be holy places.
Yep.
So, storing up arms and provisions and depositing there the plunder they had collected from Jerusalem, thus they posed a significant threat. Okay, Zach, 36.
The citadel became an ambush against the sanctuary, an evil adversary for Israel at all times.
So, from the citadel, they would raid the sanctuary.
Yeah.
And take the tithes.
So this is going to show some of my ignorance. What's a citadel?
It's a fort.
It's a fortress.
That's what they've erected in the city of David. They've erected a fort next to the sanctuary.
To rob the tithing house.
Oh, that's good. Like the stuff that's going on now of Fortress of the Castle. Okay, all right. Okay.
So the place meant for defense is actually becoming the place meant for the defense of the city is actually a source of oppression.
No, that makes sense.
Verse 37, Stephen.
Yeah, they spilled innocent blood all around the sanctuary and even defiled the sanctuary itself.
This is the type and shadow of the abomination of desolation, the spilling of innocent blood in the sanctuary.
Which is going along completely rejecting Torah, right?
Because of them, the inhabitants of Jerusalem fled, and the city became a dwelling place of strangers. She became estranged from her own offspring, and her children abandoned her.
So that's to me, it sounds like Daniel 9, how the people are rejecting Yahweh's ways, right?
Yep. And this is and verse 39, Zach.
Her sanctuary became as desolate as a desert. Her feasts were turned into mourning, her sabbaths into reproach, her honor into contempt.
And all this, if as you can read earlier on, all of this happened because they weren't keeping the law. They were offering sacrifices even in the sanctuary to other gods.
And I believe this is vague memory here because I haven't studied this a lot, but they were even doing pig sacrifices there, right? Or is that later?
That's going to come.
Oh, okay. All right.
Here we have
my vague memory is correct, but just not on the timing.
Right. So, here we see the abomination has made desolate. Their abominations have made desolate the sanctuary.
Right. As in, the way that I would say it is because their abominations, they've completely rejected Yahweh. They then get the curses, which includes making them desolate, right?
Though the fullness of those curses were not enacted upon them until 70 AD.
Sure. Right. And there's another one that's coming up somewhat soon, but it's following the pattern that's going on here, right?
Yeah. So this is why I say this is a type and a shadow. We can look to this and we can understand what will happen with the fifth kingdom. Her dishonor was equal to her former glory, and her exaltation was turned into mourning. The city that Nehemiah and Zerubbabel had rebuilt has been reduced to nothing because of the wickedness of the people.
Right. And the glory, I would say, the glory comes from Yahweh. And they lost it because they rejected his ways.
That would be correct. So Zach, 41.
Then the king issued an edict to his whole kingdom that all of his subjects should become a united people.
Oh, this is so like what's going to happen with the fifth kingdom.
Yeah, one world religion, one world government, right?
Yep. Verse 42, Stephen.
Yes, with each nation abandoning its particular customs, all the Gentiles accepted the decree of the king.
And here's the sad thing. This book, while history, also sadly may be as prophecy. And
Oh,
many
I definitely see prophecy going on here, right? Because the manner of prophecy with the Jews is using history to show the future, right?
Right.
So
there's actually
the D&C Yahweh states the Apocryphas, he states that there's good and bad here. And I think this part right here is good, right?
Yeah, there's much that's good in the Apocrypha.
Yeah, there is much, but there is some error. There is some errors, but
well, there's some errors in the Bible too.
Yes, but how the errors got there is a little different than the Apocrypha. But anyways,
right. And many among the Israelites adopted his religion, sacrificing to idols and profaning the Sabbath. And we see that today.
Yeah, and I will say
among those who claim to be God's people in the Christian community who teaches replacement theology, they believe they've replaced the Jews as God's people, and yet they sacrifice to idols and profane the Sabbath.
Yeah, which goes along the mark of the beast. The mark of the beast is profaning Yahweh's Sabbaths. Because there's a weekly Sabbath, there's a moonly Sabbath, and there's an annual Sabbath.
And this is one of the reasons, and from this you can tell that they've already lost some stuff here. Because they only refer to one Sabbath.
Yes, correct. Now, in the scriptures, that it says Sabbaths. Okay, so
that's how you can tell that this is recorded from a historical standpoint, because at this point, the Jews primarily are upholding one Sabbath, the idea of one Sabbath and holy days.
Correct.
That was
they gave up the lunar Sabbath or new moon day.
They were no longer at this point. They were no longer honoring new moon day, which was actually something that was honored. That was actually honored by the Jews under Solomon, or under Saul, David, and Solomon at least.
Yeah, and there's an example of new moon day. And what? Let me go look at the notes. Is it 1 Samuel? I always forget. I know that's not the right one, but it's next door to it. 1 Samuel 20.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So just to show you that they were observing the new moon in at the time of Saul and with David, we have this reading from 1 Samuel chapter 20. And David said unto Jonathan, behold, tomorrow is the new moon day, and I should not fail to sit with the king at meat, but let me go, that I may hide myself in the field unto the third day at even. There were 2 new moon days.
Yeah, this is before the lunar cycle change.
Right. 1 Samuel 20:18. Then Jonathan said to David, tomorrow is the new moon day, and thou shalt be missed, because thy seat will be empty. So David hid himself in the field,
And when the new moon was come, the king sat him down to eat meat, observing the new moon Sabbath.
Yeah.
His household. David was a part of his household, being a general in his armies.
Yes. And Saul has lots of issues, but we're not going to get into that right now.
But at this point, at least he was keeping the Sabbaths.
I don't know if he actually ever stopped, to be honest, but that's more of a cultural thing than anything, because he did have the spirit of Satan with him. So
Right, but whether
in fact, I'll just say this real quick. Saul is a type of Satan, and you can see that through a lot of scriptures. So
right, and the main thing, but the thing remains, he knew the Sabbaths, and he kept
yeah. They hadn't been
regardless
changed
of
yet.
regardless of what his motivations were, because those are not recorded.
Correct.
The Sabbaths.
Yeah. Correct. I'm putting my interpretation of his motivations there, and I don't know for sure. I think there's support for it, but anyways, it's not scriptural. That is
What is
according to
scriptural? What is scriptural is that the Sabbath of the new moon was observed. That's
correct.
What's,
Correct.
and because David did not attend his Sabbath festival, his Sabbath feast at his house, he became very angry. So that's something there. Okay.
So real quick, I do want to say one more thing. I do believe the reason why that David did not kill Saul, even when Yahweh gave an opportunity, is because David was a mighty and strong one, and it is the Redeemer, not the mighty and strong one, that kills Satan.
Well, yes, and yeah, that's a good surmising. What David himself says is that it is not his right to lift his hand against the Lord's anointed.
Right. But that also goes along with how Satan used to be an anointed too. He fell.
That's true. That's true.
So I do think the pattern fits. But anyways, I don't want to sidetrack us too much.
Right, and especially not on minor stuff. But
Yeah.
the point is that at the time of David and Saul and Solomon, they were keeping the new moon Sabbath. In fact, the new moon Sabbath was known and kept even in the time of Amos. So this is something that has happened. They've lost their new moon Sabbaths since the Babylonian captivity.
Yeah, so we can go look at the Amos just real quick since you're bringing it up.
Yep.
No, if I could spell. Sorry. There you go. That's the one you want.
Okay. So the merchants are not allowed to sell on Sabbaths, or and as we're about to find out, on new moon days either. So these are the merchants.
Well, because New Moon Day is a Sabbath.
That's right. Yes. Thank you for the clarification.
I mean, I know we believe the same. I'm just clarifying and make sure people understand what's being said. That's
right. That's why I said thank you for the clarification. So these are the merchants talking here. The merchants who love to rip people off on all day week,
as it's actually in the verse, right?
and would do it on the Sabbath if they could. Yeah. So here's what they're saying.
Or this is an example where it's cultures that's preventing them from doing it because they can't get away with it.
Right. So the merchants are saying, when will the new moon day be gone, that we may sell corn, and the Sabbath, that we may set forth wheat, making the ephah small and the shekel great?
AKA the ripping off, right?
And falsifying the balances by deceit. They know they can't do their trade on the Sabbath, or on the weekly or the moonly Sabbath. Yeah. Because they were not being allowed to by the leaders of the time.
Yeah, but at this point, at the civil governmental was not allowing them to do it.
Yes. So let us go back to
Maccabees.
Maccabees.
Okay.
So the great thing about a book like the Maccabees is you can actually see how this claim that the Jewish rabbis make that they never lost anything is
Lie.
bogus. It's
Yeah.
a bogus claim made out of arrogance and basically the idea that if we decide that the law has changed, God has to obey our law.
Yeah. And there's a very good recording on that, which I'll put in the notes. I always forget the name exactly, but the Hebrew Yeshua versus the Greek Jesus. There's a Pharisee / Orthodox Jew that converted to Karaite Jews that brings out the Talmud and the history and a story that brings out how the rabbis do believe that God has to obey their interpretation of Yahweh's law, which is ridiculous.
Right. So, so there we go. So now I'll read verse. Zach, can you read verse 44?
The king also sent messengers to Jerusalem and the cities of Judah with edicts, commanding them to adopt practices that were foreign to their country.
So now the king is requiring the people of God to renounce Torah and observe Greek customs.
That sounds like the antichrist.
Yes, that is because Antiochus Epiphanes is a shadow of the Antichrist.
Yeah, I completely agree.
He is possessed of the Antichrist spirit.
Yeah.
That is for sure.
As in behavior, right?
Yes. By the way, folks, that is a legitimate definition of spirit.
So let's go see that. Oh. Am I spelling it wrong, or is it a different keyword? I can't remember.
It's okay. Here we go. Let's see. Vigor of intellect, genius, animal excitement or the effect thereof, life, ardor, fire. This is all stuff related to behavior. Temper, disposition of mind, habitual, or temporary. Man of generous spirit. In other words, a man of generous behavior. How do you tell that a man is of generous spirit? By the behavior that he exhibits. The soul of man, the intellect, material, immortal part of human beings. Yes, that is that is definitely a legitimate definition of spirit, but also turn of mind, temper, occasions, state of the mind, resulting in action. Perfect judge will read each work of wit with the same spirit as its author writ. So yeah, a person of activity, a man of life, vigor, or enterprise. These are all things these are all things which dictate action and behavior. So
Can we go back to Maccabees?
Yep.
Okay.
So there you go. That is what do we say when somebody begins to behave in the way that indicates when somebody's improved mood begins to manifest in their actions? What do we say? We say that's the spirit.
Correct. So there are idioms and ways of saying things, even in today's modern English, that shows it does mean behavior. It's just not generally thought of that way today.
Right. So that these are things that we need to. So that's this is that he's definitely showing the antichrist spirit or behavior. So verse 45.
So I have this dictionary. It's just pretty modern.
Yep.
And number 5 it says disposition,
Disposition.
mood.
Disposition, mood, that's behavior.
Yeah, that's
Yep.
behavior.
So
So it's not the specific word, but it is the same intent, right?
Yep.
So let's see. Verse 45. Okay, we had Zach read 44, verse 45, Stephen.
Yes.
Oh, wait, we just did 45, didn't we? I'll read 46 then. To defile the temple and its priests, to defile the temple and its priests.
Yeah, so the priests are the leaders and the teachers, right?
To build altars, temples, and shrines for idols. And in all of our religions, our priests are defiled.
Yes. And they are pushing worship of idols in various ways and forms, right?
So verse 47, Zach.
To sacrifice swine and other unclean beasts.
So they were going to be required to sacrifice pigs in the temple,
Which is
thus rendering the priests unclean.
now I don't know if there's a degree of uncleanliness within the unkosher animals, but the swine pig is used throughout, especially in the New Testament and even in Yeshua's parables, as like the worst type of unkosher animal, right?
And so that's to leave their sons uncircumcised and allow themselves to be defiled with every kind of impurity and abomination.
So I'll just say this, and if we want to go more, it's up to Ben because he's leaving right now.
Yeah.
But circumcision was a punishment that was done away at the cross. I'll just say that unless he wants to
Yeah,
do.
but given that this is before the cross, this is they are causing wickedness by causing them not to live within the commands that are in force at that time.
Correct. I agree. I just wanted to say that is something that was done away with at the cross.
Absolutely.
It was
I'm
a
not arguing that,
yeah,
but it was a commandment at this time.
correct. We're in agreement.
Because that actually correlates very strongly with what Jacob writes in Second Nephi, where he says that we obey the law of Moses because of the commandment.
Correct. And law of Moses is primarily the 2 daily lambs that was given as a punishment because they broke their covenant.
By the way, he says because of the commandment, not because of the commandments.
Correct. It was
the command, meaning that the law of Moses itself was a commandment onto Israel until the time, and the law of Moses and the law of the circumcision were a commandment unto God's people from the time that they were given to the time when the blood fine was paid on the cross.
Correct. Now, on the specific wording of commandment, Torah is referred as commandments, plural. So it's a minor thing, but it is an important thing, right? So
it's a one-letter difference that confuses so many people. One letter.
Yes, it does.
Okay, so Zach, 48. Oh, sorry, 49.
So that they would forget the law and change all their observances.
So this is why this is actually ambition of the mystery religion and of Satan from the beginning. It's been his ambition from the beginning, from the Tower of Babel down to the present day, to make a religion, to make all the world worship him instead of God, therefore have all the world in rebellion against God.
Hence, abomination of
Oh, by
desolation.
the way, and how is this expressed? So they would forget the law.
Yeah, yes. Yep. And that's coming up. It's different than what most people are pushing nowadays, but here, if you read this carefully, it is showing what it actually is, as Ben is bringing out, right?
Yeah. So verse 50, Stephen.
Yeah. Anyone who refuses to obey the command of the king was put to death. Or I'm going to reread this and interpret it into modern prophecy. Anyone who refuses to obey the beast or the commands of the beast was put to death. And that's in Revelations, right?
That is why there will be many martyrs.
Yes.
And they will have to rest until the two witnesses are killed at Jerusalem. They will rest with the Lord their God until the two witnesses are killed at Jerusalem, and then they will come down with him again in the cloud to inhabit the earth after the stoning.
Yep. Yeah. And the stoning happens after they are ripe for destruction, right?
Yep. Okay, so these were the terms of the edicts he issued throughout his kingdom. He appointed inspectors to supervise all the people, and he commanded all the towns of Judah to offer sacrifices, pagan sacrifices, on pagan holidays, after the manner of pagan ritual, town by town. Now, some of that I obviously I added some of that. But
Well, you're helping us understanding what's actually going on, right?
Right. This is only to help you to understand why this is so terrible, why they must rise up.
Correct.
Okay, can you take us down a little bit?
Yeah.
We're at the top of what I can read. Okay. Verse 52, Zach.
Many of the people, abandoning the law, joined them and committed evil deeds in the land.
And sadly, this is what's going to happen to many people. They will show that they value their lives more than they value Yahushua HaMashiach.
Yeah.
And
Which shows that they're not sanctified.
Yep. Verse 53, Stephen.
Yes. Thereby driving Israel into hiding in every possible place of refuge.
And so
Israel is going to be people like the remnant who are still trying to keep the law despite the world and leaders are saying there would be punishments for doing that, right?
Well, this actually correlates very strongly with Revelations. I believe it's either at the end of chapter 12 or chapter 13, where the woman is taken up to a place of refuge.
Oh, that makes sense. That makes sense.
And so what I'm hoping that you're seeing here as we go through this is that really intricate connection in Hebrew writing between history and prophecy.
Right. And Yeshua kind of makes these connections in the New Testament. I forget where. So I don't know if we need to. It's up to Ben since he's leading. But Yeshua does kind of bring these connections out in the New Testament, and specifically this one that already happened with a pattern with the one that's going to be happening in the future.
Yeah, you can see the very definitive connections in his famous end of times prophecy in Matthew 24.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's alrighty. On the 15th day of the month Chislev, in the year 100.
You know which moon number that is? Happen chance?
I do not.
Oh, if you
That's
don't
one of
mind, let me look real quick.
It's a Babylonian name, and I didn't want to connect Babylonian stuff to.
Yeah, I don't like it because it's the 3rd. There we go. Okay.
On the 15th day of the third moon, in the year 145, the king erected upon the altar of holocausts the abomination that causes desolation, and pagan altars were built in the surrounding towns of Judah. And so this is what they're calling the abomination that causes desolation, is the erecting of the. Now, what they're calling the abomination of desolation is the erecting of the statues in the temple, which is a grave sin.
Right, which happens because they reject Torah.
But yeah, the
Or
abomination,
not diligent with it,
the
right?
abomination was they're not diligently guarding Torah.
Right.
And
Which,
that led to the pagan statues being raised in the sanctuary of YHWH.
right. Inside of Torah and Tanakh and New Testament, it actually states that we need to guard Torah, which actually goes along with how Joseph Smith says we need to abide the Book of Mormon.
Right.
They're the exact same thing, just worded slightly different.
Yeah, the idea of guarding Torah does not mean setting up a hedge around it. It means keeping it.
Correct. And a Book of Mormon actually does teach Torah. So when Joseph Smith said that, he was not saying anything different. He was saying the exact same thing through a different book, right?
Yeah.
Because Book of Mormon teaches Torah all over it.
Yes. The pagan altars were built in the surrounding towns of Judah. Okay. Zach, 55.
Incense was offered at the doors of the houses and in the streets.
Pagan Greek custom. 56, Stephen.
Any scrolls of the Torah that were found were torn into pieces and destroyed by fire.
Similarly, they will attempt to keep Torah from the faithful.
Yeah. They're trying to get any resemblance of it away, right?
They're already trying to teach people that YHWH is actually the devil, and that's just not the case.
Oh yeah. And they justify it by quoting a so-called scholar. I mean, that doesn't mean anything. Scholars contradict each other all the time. So what does that mean? But anyways.
So if any people were discovered in possession of a book of the covenant or acting in conformity with the law, they were condemned to death by decree of the king. Brothers and sisters, we can expect this.
Yeah.
We can expect no mercy from the fifth kingdom that will actually look like a blend of New Age Christianity.
In fact, in Revelations, he may give some leeway in the beginning, but after a period of time, he will take that leeway away.
And you know, depending on, and I know that there are a lot of people who look at that not being able to buy or sell as the taking away of that leeway. There are, I will say that there are multiple ways to interpret the whole buy or sell thing. But I would say that it would be wise for those who wish to keep the law to learn how to
Be more self-sufficient.
be more self-sufficient
store.
It is wiser to act as if the physical punishments could come to bear. In other words, be self-sufficient, know how to grow your own food, know how to work, and know how to live by the sweat of your brow.
Yeah.
Than otherwise, and then to expect that it's just going to be some kind of spiritualized thing that's going to be and you're going to be able to continue your happy life the way you want to.
Correct.
So that is my advice to those who wish to keep the laws, that you learn to be self-sufficient, that you do not need to buy or sell.
Correct. As Ben said, there's multiple interpretations, but and I do agree with him. It doesn't hurt to be prepared either way, just in case, right?
That's right. And so I always say it's better to have something that you don't need than to not have something that you do.
Sure. I will also add, don't get carried away.
Right.
Some people get carried away and it causes division within the spouses.
Right.
Just buy some extra, as Ben likes to say, right?
But buy extra now, buy seed. Look for a way to get your hands on land to grow food. Stuff like that. Just simple things. So this is what I would advise. Learn a skill. Learn a skill of how to work by hand.
Yeah. I recommend archery. I have been finding that fun, but I don't recommend everyone learning that one, because then there would be no gardeners also, right?
Gardeners, leatherworking, healing, being a healer, knowing how to use herbs, knowing all of these things are things that require skill, use of knowledge, use of mind and hand. And so so this section here in Maccabees can instruct us as to what we may expect coming from the fifth kingdom. Because Antiochus Epiphanes is a type and shadow of the antichrist.
Yep.
And the fifth kingdom.
Yeah.
So we can look to this as a type and shadow, and you know why you can look to it as a type and shadow? Because history repeats. Why? Because most of us are pretty stupid.
Yeah, humans end up following the same silly, stupid patterns.
Yeah, most of us are pretty stupid, and so history repeats. I know that there's the optimistic view of this, as those who don't learn the lessons of history are bound to repeat them. I just say history repeats.
Yeah. Some may not
Because the one thing we learn from history is that nobody learns from history.
Oh yeah. But those who do have to sit there and be part of the world that doesn't learn from it, right?
Right. So So I encourage anybody who hears this recording to start working on practical things.
Yeah, I mean, even learning how to start a fire without matches, right?
Learning how to start a fire without matches and without incinerating yourself.
Yeah, that would be good.
So so that's the learn. We need to start thinking practically. Make decisions every day that make make one decision every day such that if everything in your life were to go to crap, you could still move on.
Right.
Still, and your life
and that will make your life better in the situation. That'll make it so that you don't have to be afraid when bad things happen.
Right.
You don't have to be afraid of hard times.
Sure, you don't have to like them, but you don't have to be afraid of them.
That's right, because this is how the devil manipulates us, by causing us to be afraid of hard times.
Yep.
Because we're all in perception, and we're not, and not very many people have learned to add perspective to perception.
Yep.
So
They have a lot of knowledge, but no wisdom, so they don't know what to do with the knowledge.
that's right. So Zach, verse 58.
Month after month, these wicked people use their power against any loyal Israelite found in the towns.
Guys, we need to be reading these.
Yeah, that sounds like the end days, right? The end times.
Yep. We need to be reading these. We can't take them lightly. 59, Stephen.
Yep. On the 25th day of each moon, they offered sacrifice on the altar erected on top of the altar of holocausts. So that is not a day in Yahweh's high holidays or moonly days or the weekly ones. So there's
right. So
pagan
this
one.
is a pagan. They are practicing pagan ritual in the second house of Yahweh.
Do you happen to know what pagan rituals on the 25th of each moon, or?
Well, I bet we can find out.
Oh, so should we pause for a second?
Sure. So we decided to try to look up what holidays were celebrated on the 25th day of each month. And they overwhelmingly, the only one that shows up still is Christmas.
Yeah. So I do believe there's others, but that's probably the major one that has survived.
I do believe that there was probably a festival on the 25th of each month for one Greek god.
That would make sense.
But the one that has survived is Saturnalia.
Or in other words, Christmas.
Right. So, and Saturnalia survived because it was adopted by Roman Catholicism as Christmas. So in the Greek mythology, they had they would celebrate certain gods in each month, but the one that survived is Saturn.
Saturnalia, but yeah.
The celebration of Saturn.
Yeah. Which is not a good celebration. I'll just leave it at that.
Well, if you take a look, if you go back through history and through the historical accounts and read how Saturnalia was celebrated in Rome, there's a lot of trickery, a lot of debauchery, a lot of lies, a lot of cheating, a lot of loud laughter. So, and everybody, and the law was not allowed to, and the law was not allowed to function during the Feast of Saturnalia.
Correct.
That's even Roman law was not functioning during the Feast of Saturnalia.
So one thing, let's see what 25 means in the occult. So let's pause for a minute.
Okay.
Oops, if I can hit the buttons. Okay.
So the number 25 is actually a mix of there is actually a very powerful number in pagan symbology, mixing the powers and attributes of the numbers 2 and 5, and 2 representing harmony and balance,
with 5 representing personal expression and creativity. So so what we have here, these pagan holidays are celebrated on the 25th, honoring the balance between good and evil that must exist in the world according to Luciferian belief, that there must be
harmony and balance. There's that checkerboard, right?
Yeah, it's the checkerboard, black and white.
Yep.
Harmony and balance. And so that's why these celebrations are held on the 25th. Another is the 5, the 5 power being the creativity and self-expression. I am God. Do as thou wilt is the whole of the law, self-expression. And
the inner wisdom, I know what is right and wrong, not God. I do, right?
Intuition and the inner wisdom, I know what's right and wrong better than God does. And transformation and change, that we have the power to transform and change ourselves.
Right. Where we don't need,
we are not reliant.
We
are not reliant upon Yeshua HaMashiach, Yahweh, or any other entity other than ourselves for transformation and change.
Right.
This is the other Jesus of which Paul spoke, that we should not be willing to accept, but which we are.
Well, or in other words, the antichrist, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Most of the world teaches the antichrist as Christ, so, which is sad, but that is the case. You want back Maccabees again?
Yep, back to Maccabees. Okay, where were we?
Well, we're just at 25, so I think it was this, and I think I read it, but I'm not sure.
Yes, okay. In accordance with the royal decree, any women who had their children circumcised were put to death. They could not
following Yahweh's laws, right?
They could not obey they were not allowed to obey the commandment on pain of death.
Right.
And here, verse 61, Zach.
With their infants hung from their necks, also put to death were their families, and those who had circumcised them.
That is how much Satan hates Yehovah. This is how much Satan hates Yehovah.
That's just horrible, right?
And this is the mercy that we can expect from the 5th kingdom.
No quarter.
Mercy's an interesting word for that, but yeah, I know what you're getting at.
We need to be prepared to stand for Christ, for the Messiah, in all places, and in all things, and in all conditions that we may be called to be in. We must be prepared to be martyrs. For if we are not, then we will become perdition. For we would have had the light and have turned against it.
Yeah.
Despite all this.
So verse 62, just so it's clear.
Yep, verse 62. Despite all this, many in Israel stood firm and were resolved in their hearts not to eat any unclean food.
So this is the remnant who are staying faithful, trust, and diligent, and kosher is still a valid law today. And the Book of Mormon shows that after the death and resurrection.
They preferred to die rather than be defiled by such food and profane the holy covenant, and they suffered death for their convictions. And great affliction was unleashed upon Israel. Now, this is a type and shadow, because while great affliction was unleashed upon Israel here, it is as nothing compared to Jacob's trouble, which is coming.
Yes. In fact,
It's not
even
Judah's
say,
trouble. You can't say that it's limited to Jerusalem, even if you believe that those people are of Judah, because it's not Judah's trouble. It's Jacob's trouble.
correct.
All of Israel. So so the fulfillment of prophecy is not just in the hands of Judah alone.
Yep.
Prophecy is about Israel, and just because Judah arrogantly, and just because those who believe themselves, those who call themselves Judah arrogantly believe that they are all of Israel, does not make it the case.
We agree.
If you are following in God's way, you are Israel. No longer do we need to be circumcised. No longer do we need to offer up lambs morning and afternoon. Morning and evening, sorry. These are not necessary to be Israel. What is necessary to be Israel is to covenant with Yahweh, to keep all of his commandments, and show.
So along these lines, I think you will like this. I'm just interjecting a little bit. Written law, not the oral law, right?
Right. Exactly. Yes, absolutely. Written law, not oral. Because, by the way, in spite of the fact that they say that the oral law came from Moses, none of the people who have supplied us with oral law were even alive at the time of Moses.
Right, and they don't even quote Moses in it.
That's right. So
they're quoting arguments with each other and what it should be, not what Moses said it was.
So the oral law is bullocks.
Yeah.
If you find something in there that you find useful that is not contradictory to Torah, you may practice it, but understand that that is tradition. It is not the law of God.
Right. I find the oral law more useful for history purposes than anything else. But anyways.
But yeah, it has its uses, but as an interpretation of the law of God, it simply shows the foolishness of man.
Correct. Yes. And there's a lot of wicked stuff in the oral law.
So
lots of very wicked stuff in it. I'll just leave it at that.
To go with this as written, therefore, we'll start with Alma, chapter 37, verse 20. Therefore, I command you, my son Helaman, that you be diligent in fulfilling all my words, that you be diligent in keeping the commandments of Elohim as they are written. Exodus 34, 27, and the Lord said unto Moses, write thou these words. Wait a
minute. What does right mean? Maybe do we need to check that?
No, I think we know what right means.
Okay.
The tenor of these words, I have made a covenant with thee and with Israel. Joshua 1, 6 through 9. Be strong and of a good courage. For unto this people shalt thou divide for an inheritance the land, which I swear unto their fathers to give them. Only be thou strong and very courageous, that thou mayest observe to do according to all the law which my servant commanded thee. Turn not from it from the right hand or to the left, that thou mayest prosper whithersoever thou goest. Books are written of the law shall not depart out of thy mouth.
I think you have a broken record problem there.
But thou shalt meditate therein day and night.
Now I want to say meditate is to think upon. Okay.
Right.
This is Hebrew meditation, thinking upon, not Eastern meditation, emptying your mind, which leaves you open for demons.
That thou mayest observe to do according to all that is written therein. All that is written therein. For then thou shalt make thy way prosperous, and then shalt thou have good success. Have not I commanded thee? Be strong and of good courage. Be not afraid, neither be thou dismayed. For the Lord thy God is with thee whithersoever thou goest.
You want more? Anyways.
Yeah. So I mean, we've cited three evidences.
Oh yeah, three different records. Right. So,
Yeah.
but I mean, there's more. It's in modern stuff too. So
Yeah, the facts of the matter. Doctrine and Covenants, section 84.
oh, did I?
I think you might have missed
Oh, there
that.
it is. It's right there. Right there.
Doctrine and Covenants 8457. Okay, for all those who care about the fact that the church that Joseph set up was placed under condemnation.
This
And
shows why it was under condemnation.
and they shall remain under this condemnation. That's everybody in the church shall remain under this condemnation until they repent and remember the new covenant
Okay,
or renewed covenant. Even the Book of Mormon
Which the Book of Mormon teaches Torah.
and the former commandments which I have given them, not only to say, but to do according to that which I have written.
Yeah, and the only thing that
So
Yahweh
this is not about the revelations that Joseph Smith received to do according to that which I, Elohim, have written. There is only one law.
Torah, the 10 commandments or 10 divisions of Torah is what Yeshua wrote with his own finger.
There is, yes, the Elohim of Israel only wrote one law.
Yep. Showing it's still valid. And that's in modern revelation. Right?
And Doctrine and Covenants 59.
Oh, yeah. Let me I don't have that here, but let me get it for you. Look, my sign-in failed because I don't give it any credentials. Sorry, I'm just being a dork.
Verses 21 and 22.
There you go.
Half blacked. You're half blocked. Or maybe that's me. Maybe that's my fault. Yep, that's my
Maybe
fault.
that's your fault.
Yeah. Okay. And in nothing, I repeat, nothing doth man offend God. Or against none, I repeat, none, is his wrath kindled, save those who confess not his hand in all things in Torah. Those who say that his hand was not involved in writing Torah offend God.
Oh yeah, and it's all throughout all the scriptures that Yahweh wrote Torah with his own finger, right? So
And obey not those who confess not his hand in all things and obey not his commandments. How are we to, which commandments are we to obey? How are we to obey them? Behold, this obeying of this acknowledgement of his hand in all things and obeying the law and the prophet. And
well,
obeying
this is a phrase. This is now he gave it to Joseph Smith and hit the words that Joseph Smith knew it, and I can show that from D&C 1. But this is according to Torah and the prophets.
But let me.
if I could finish.
Oh, sorry about that.
Thank you. Okay. Save those who confess not his hand in all things, those who confess not that he wrote Torah and obey not his commandments. How are we to confess Torah and obey his commandments? Behold, this is according to the law and the prophets. This is a phrase, this is a code phrase that is used by Yeshua HaMashiach himself as he teaches the law and the prophets, Torah, the prophets.
Yeah, and
It's
we
all-
can even see this in the JST at times.
So that is the point. Wherefore trouble me no more concerning this matter. If he has given you a commandment already through if he has revealed his mind and will on a matter already in the Holy Scriptures, we should not be asking him whether we need to do that.
Right. So just some context here to help give some more emphasis of what Ben is saying. This is an answer to Joseph Smith, the prophet of the restoration, asking if he should do something or not. And Yahweh says, do what I already said to do.
And it was concerning the Sabbath day.
Yeah.
The Lord has revealed his Sabbath in the Holy Scriptures, and you can find it. All you have to do is be willing to lose your damned Roman traditions. And I use that word intentionally.
Yeah, there it is damning.
You're not necessarily damned, but the Roman traditions certainly are. And those who continue to follow them once they know that they are not good are damned.
Yeah. So, all of us here on this recording are lunar Sabbatarians. We keep the Sabbath according to the lunar cycle, as stated in Genesis 1:14 and 16, and Leviticus 23, 2 and 3. So
Anybody who keeps the Sabbath by the calendar set by Rome is keeping a Roman Sabbath, not God's Sabbath.
yeah.
God doesn't care what the seventh day on Constantine's calendar is.
Which has changed, FYI.
And
depending what country you're in, it's changed multiple times.
Right. But the point remains. Doesn't matter that it's changed. God doesn't care what the seventh day on Constantine's calendar is.
Right. And I'm just bringing it how it changed as to give some support for us. Anyway.
Yeah, but I think I believe that it's best. I believe the wisdom. I believe in God gave us his wisdom with regards, and I'm not saying anything against what you're saying, Stephen.
Sure. I was trying to support you.
Yeah, no, and I thank you for it. But God gave us his wisdom regarding his appointed times.
Yes, he did.
In the creation. Genesis chapter 1.
So I think I know what you're getting at.
Yeah.
I think that's what you want, right?
Yeah. Genesis chapter 1, verses 14 and 16. And Elohim said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for moed, and for days and years. Moed means appointed times.
And the weekly Sabbath.
And there is no more regularly appointed time than the weekly Sabbath.
Amen to that, because it happens the most, right?
So it was the lights in the heaven that he gave us by which to know his Sabbath.
Right. And
God does not change.
Right. And it's by two great lights, sun and the moon, not millions and billions of lights, as some people try to say we need to use the stars to determine things.
Stars,
The
the primary
scriptures
value of
state
the
two
stars-
great lights.
the primary value of the stars is if you know how to read them to teach you the gospel.
Yeah, yeah. And I'll put my
And
Mazer
most
on.
people don't, and most people
No.
don't, do that- and most people don't know that. So the stars have the value of looking pretty in the night sky.
Sure. But they do teach the gospel, and I'll put it in the notes for people to look more
Yeah.
into.
Most people don't know how to read them though. So their primary value for most people is to look pretty in the night sky. But if you are interested, there are resources that you can learn how to read the gospel in the stars.
Yes. Yes, there is.
So, yeah, so verse 16 talks about, and Elohim made two great lights, the greater light to rule or dominate the day, because we can sometimes still see the moon during the day, but the greater light still dominates, the sun still dominates.
Yeah.
And the lesser light to rule the night or dominate the night. He made the stars also. You see, it's almost like the stars are a second thought.
Yeah, that's why they in my little glyph there, it's stars rule nothing, but they do teach the gospel.
If you know, and as I say, it's if you know how to read them, and actually, I would encourage people to learn how to read them.
Yes, yes. But the big point is it's two great lights, not a million or billion lights, right? The
Right.
two are the sun and the moon.
And the sun, the length of time that the sun is in the sky determines the beginning of the year, because it is the first, as well as the moon, because it's the first. The new year begins with the first new moon after the spring equinox.
Yeah, yeah. So this is a little going along with Ben says. This is something I have on my Sabbath page. The day starts at sunrise. The month, I said that on purpose, starts the sunrise after the dark conjunction, and the year starts the month after the spring equinox.
And so after that, after the first day of Abib, on the 10th day of Abib, one chooses the lamb for the Passover.
Yep. Just like Yeshua was slain before the foundation of the world, because the 14th is when he's slain, and when he came down in the fourth millennium. 3, 2, 1, first century, 0 before the foundation of the world.
So the 14th, and so on the 14th of Abib, as determined by the first new moon day after the spring equinox, the 14th of Abib is Pesach. The evening of the 14th of Abib is Pesach,
Yeah.
or Passover.
Yep.
Now, the symbolism of Passover is very much connected to the first coming of our Lord and Savior, but there are connections to the second coming as well. And this is something that most people, Christians are very good at pointing at seeing the connections between Pesach and the first Advent. They're not very good at seeing the connections between Pesach, the day, the night of deliverance,
Yep.
and the second coming.
Yep.
So the facts of the matter are, Pesach has not even been fulfilled.
Nope. And the second coming will have elements that happen on each of the three groupings of the high holidays.
So Pesach hasn't even been fulfilled. Therefore, this not one jot or one tittle of the law shall pass away until all hath been fulfilled. And guess what? That's not going to happen because the works of God are endless.
That's true. Yeah.
So,
And so if you want, well, I can sidetrack us on 2 Nephi 29. It actually states that.
yep.
I gotta hit the right buttons. People, please don't push my buttons. Anyways, sorry, just being silly in the moment. That's 2 Nephi 29. And the keyword is finish. Ah, there we go. It's verse 9.
And
You
I
want
do
to read it,
this.
or- okay, go ahead.
Okay. Actually, Zach, do you want to read it?
Verse 9.
Verse
Yeah.
9.
And I do this that I may prove unto many that I am the same yesterday, today, and forever. And I speak forth my words according to mine own pleasure. Because I have spoken one word, ye need not suppose that I cannot speak another. For my work is not yet finished, neither shall it be until the end of man, neither from that time henceforth and forever.
Now, I will say that's a funny way of saying my work is never finished, right?
Yeah. Even his work's not finished at the millennium. His work's not finished when after Armageddon, or after the final sealing up of Satan and his followers.
Yeah. And the final battle may
Gog and Magog, his work's
that's what I'm trying to say. Thank you.
his work's still not finished after Gog and Magog.
Yeah.
His work is never ever finished. And the arrogance of man to assume that if his work is not yet finished, that his law is, that his way of doing his work is finished. That
Yes.
is arrogance.
So one thing I will say, on the cross, when he said it is finished, he's referring to the law of Moses and his sacrifice, not his work.
Right. He's referring to blood penalties. The old covenant, the new covenant that Jeremiah speaks of is basically Torah without those blood penalties.
Correct.
And Torah is, because when Jeremiah writes of the new covenant, talking about what the Lord doesn't say, I will write a new law upon their hearts. He says, I will write my law upon their hearts. He doesn't, and so it is not a new law.
His laws don't change, as stated in multiple places. He doesn't turn to the left or to the right.
Mm-hmm. So I just want to leave people with that, and we'll probably do a little more in Maccabees, chapter 2, in the coming weeks. But I feel like we've covered covered a good bit, and this
was a good teaching. You did a good job.
alrighty. So I just want to thank Zach for giving us the opportunity to look into Maccabees and to bring out some of the truths that are contained therein. He was the one who wanted to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, for the most part, we do try to do of what people want in the moment, right?
Yep.
All right, so I'm gonna pause.
All righty. So I just want to encourage everybody to stop being arrogant, to realize that you're a fool before God.
Yeah.
That his ways, which are eternal and have never changed, and will never change, are still in place.
Punishments can go away. Otherwise, I would go to hell. So I'm
Right.
glad punishments don't have to be eternal.
Punishments don't have to be eternal, but his ways are. And
Correct.
we show our broken heart and contrite spirit by walking in the mind and will of God, Torah.
Amen.
That's my testimony in the name of Yahushua HaMashiach. Amen.
Amen.
Mhm.